Marissa Crider set up strict house rules after recently taking in a third roommate in her apartment in Queens.
First, she told her new roommate, who had fled his apartment because he feared getting the coronavirus from one of his 5 other housemates, that he could not see friends in person. Then, she explained that each person in the apartment had to give detailed accounts of their movements and whereabouts every day.
It feels like we're at war, and it's a set of different rules at wartime, said Ms. Crider, 27. It's to ease the anxiety of the other people. We kind of make a big effort to talk about what we've been doing. We are on the same page on what is smart and not smart to do right now.
In just weeks, as New York City has become a global epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, residents, young and old, have had to rethink how they live. For older people, who knew they were at risk, the changes came quickly. But for young New Yorkers, for whom the appeal of New York has long been the ability to freely move around the city to socialize, work and live, it's been a more gradual process. Now, they are starting to reluctantly accept that they too are in danger.
While the common misperception has been that only the old and frail can contract the coronavirus, early testing data in the city has shown that young New Yorkers have also been vulnerable. People ranging in ages from 18 to 44 have accounted for 46% of positive tests, according to city data as of Monday.
Part of it is because we are testing more people as tests become more available, and also because folks in this age group were out and about and weren't necessarily engaging in social distancing like other age groups, said Dr. Danielle Ompad, Associate Professor of Epidemiology at NYU's School of Global Public Health.
So far in New York, no one in the under 44 category has died after contracting the virus, but a report issued last week by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed that across the United States, 38% of those hospitalized were between the ages of 20 and 54.
Nationally, 12% of the intensive care patients were between the ages of 20 and 44. Some experts suggested vaping might make young people more vulnerable to the virus.
In the early stages of the outbreak, young people appeared to be largely unmoved by the threat of the virus. They posted memes and videos of themselves defying the guidelines on social media. Images appeared of young people lounging on the beach in Florida for spring break. In New York City, throngs of young people continued to frequent bars and restaurants after city and state officials had issued social distancing guidelines.
This behavior caused New York officials to issue stricter measures, which included closing bars, restaurants, gyms and music venues.
Young people can get coronavirus, Gov. Andrew M. Cuomo said at a news conference last week in which he brought out his daughter Michaela to emphasize his message to young New Yorkers. That's one of the other myths, young people don't get it. Young people do get it, and young people can transfer it, and you can wind up infecting someone, and possibly killing someone, if you're exposed to it.
On the first Saturday night in the city after the restaurant and bar ban, young people in New York appeared to be listening to the warnings. Neighborhoods that would normally have been buzzing with activity were eerily quiet. The people out were mostly walking in pairs.
Claudia Cruz, 26, and Mariah Berger, 25, met up in the East Village to grab a bite at Lil Frankie's Pizzeria. The pair ate in a nearby park, sitting on separate benches.
Ms. Berger said she was conscious of the fact that young people could get infected and still not show symptoms.
I'm concerned that I don't want to spread it to someone else, even if I'm not showing symptoms, Ms. Berger said.
City officials have said in recent days that since younger people are less likely to die after contracting the virus, they hope the stricter social distancing measures would lead to fewer young people needing to be tested.
We need to shift as much of our focus as humanly possible to protecting folks who are older and have those pre-existing conditions, Mayor Bill de Blasio said on Sunday.
Still, some New Yorkers couldn't resist going out with a group of friends on Saturday night after being cooped up for what they said felt like a long time. Johnny Liu, 23, ventured out of his apartment for the first time this week aside from dipping in and out for errands.
This never happens, he said, surveying an empty street in the Lower East Side where he normally spends his nights out. There are usually lines around the block for pianos. There's a line around the block for hair of the dog. It's crazy.
He, his roommate and the roommate's boyfriend were having a friend over. Still, he said they were taking extra precautions. The friend took an Uber. Mr. Liu advised her to keep the windows open and gave her a mask when she arrived.
But maintaining the 6 feet social distancing rule in New York was tricky, he said. How do we do it, he said. Do we just have to get used to saying, move away?
Even before the testing data showed they were at risk, many young people already were feeling the effects of the outbreak on almost everything from their bank accounts to their mental health. Ms. Crider said nearly every aspect of her life was upended within the span of a week.
A week and a half ago, she was employed as a part-time teacher. Now she has no income coming in, and can't afford to pay next month's rent. Do we have to pay rent? She wondered.
Still, despite the financial constraints, she agreed to let a friend live with her and her roommate in the already cramped railroad apartment in Ridgewood. We're all trying to be courteous, she said, pausing, before adding, but there was a moment the other day when I flipped out.
She has experienced intense anxiety and has had panic attacks twice already this week.
When she goes out, it's only to go food shopping or to exercise. During her runs, she often passes by the window of one of her friends, who recently returned from traveling abroad and was mandated by the federal government to isolate herself for 2 weeks. I see her at the window and we wave at each other, Ms. Crider said.
Rachel Kessler, 28, and Glenn Porter, 30, kept a foot between themselves as they caught up on Sterling Place between Nostrand and New York Avenues in Brooklyn on Saturday, having coincidentally been biking at the same time.
The pair, who are freelancers who work in the film industry, had spent the previous Saturday together saying farewell to socializing at a house party, packed with 8 or 9 people. Since then, Mr. Porter said he has been mostly getting outside just to bike.
This Saturday would be a much more subdued evening for each of them.
Dinner and a movie, Ms. Kessler said, noting that her sister, who has several roommates, would be joining her for the evening in her one-bedroom apartment.
Mr. Porter said his plans would consist of heating leftovers. He added that he and his friends had been getting together on FaceTime for daily drawing competitions.
Today's theme was Biker Frog, he said. So we meet at 7 p.m. and show each other our drawings.
Alexandra E. Petrie and Matthew Sadaka contributed reporting.